You are listening to the Lance J Radio Show on Advent Sports Network.
Great blessings of having this radio show, the Lance J Radio Show on Advent Sports Network, is the opportunity to not just talk with people who are athletes, but to talk to people that have inspirational testimony, really juxtapose the sports world with the world of Christianity and those who seek salvation. As I say repeatedly on this show, Advent Sports Network, our concept is to literally be the confluence between those two worlds. So our next guest, generally when someone comes on the show and there's someone who I regard with a lot of esteem, someone who I think highly of, I go through this list of platitudes and kind of set them up for the interview. I'm not going to do that this time. I'm just going to say, sit back, buckle up for the next 20 minutes. It's going to be something that's going to be hilarious, and you're going to walk away encouraged. Our next guest, Pastor Damian Chandler, is just a man that I know personally, have known since college, and you want to talk about my friend Kim Bolgen, who has a spot on the show for her God Chose Me album. She uses the term unencumbered praise. And Pastor Chandler, when I think of unencumbered praise, meaning that this is a man that will be out praising the Lord regardless of the situation, not worried about what he's wearing, not worried about what people think, not worried about winning a popularity contest or getting followers on Twitter, all of that stuff. This is just a man of God, someone that loves the Lord, and someone that also thinks that he can play basketball, which we'll talk about too. So I'd like to introduce Pastor Damian Chandler to my audience. Welcome to the Lance J Radio Show, man. I've been chasing you for a while, man. It's just great to get you on the show.
First of all, thank you for having me on the show, man, and to all the listeners out there. I can play basketball, and I can definitely play basketball better than the host, if that's the standard that we're measuring this stuff by. But we're going to work all that out within this time that we're going to spend together.
Yeah,
it's an honor being with you. It's an honor being with your listeners, man. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, man. So, Pastor Chandler, give us a background of tell us where you're from. I know that you've lived all over North America and the Caribbean. So you lived in the Caribbean, you lived in Canada, you've been on the West Coast, you've been in the South, you've been in Toronto. Give us a background of your upbringing and just how did you get into sports? What sports do you play? What do you excel at?
Okay. I was born in Toronto, Canada, but my parents were from Barbados. And so when I was really young, we moved back to Barbados. My dad started a business down there, and I can't tell you what age I was at, but I was introduced to the sport of soccer, and as long as I can remember, that's what I did. That's what I played. The landscape of sports in the Caribbean at that particular time, Barbados, third world country, there were not the variety of sports, at least available to everyone. So basketball was just coming up when I was there. I don't even think there was a high school basketball league at first. By the time I got to high school, there was. But soccer and cricket were the mainstays. Some people played field hockey, wasn't that big for men. And then there was some local sports like road tennis. Some people were into table tennis, that kind of stuff. But really, soccer and cricket is where it was. And with cricket, I wasn't, I was okay, but I wasn't that good. And I started to focus in on soccer. And so while I was there, I played soccer, and after a while, I started to become better and better. And at the age of 15, I was playing on the Barbados under-16 national team. And then I played on the under-18 national team for about a year or so. At the age of 16, I was the youngest person on the team, one of the youngest people on the team. And then I played Barbados under-21 when I was about 16 as well. And so it was a wonderful experience. It's a different type of experience than what most people would probably see on TV, because with smaller countries at that particular time, you didn't really have a lot of you didn't have a large budget. You didn't have a travel budget, those types of things. The years that I played, we were really lucky because it was a year when FIFA was trying to improve soccer around the world, and they were sending these world-class coaches to countries like mine to try to raise the standard of soccer there. And so I had a coach, his name was Jorge Ramos. He was right out of Brazil. I think he coached second division Brazilian professional team. I had a coach, I can't remember what his name was, but he was from Chile and coached the number one professional team in Chile. And then we had a coach that actually trained with Pelé. And all of these great coaches would come and rotate in and rotate out for a 6-month period. And my understanding of the game just exploded. The coach from Chile, one day we were practicing, and he said, "Okay, now we're going to do gymnastics." And all of us, we were in gymnastics. And the 60-year-old man took off, and he started to do a running tumble, boom, 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 and then he did a flip and landed. And he said, "You guys can't do that?" And we're like, "No." And he exposed to us that when we see these acrobatic plays on the television or in the World Cup, these players, at least from Chile, do 6 years of gymnastics to help them with their soccer, and that's from the goalie all the way up to the striker. So just the experiences, the wide range of experiences, and wide range of coaches. It was an amazing experience. And then the first day that I got to put on my country's colors and play in front of a packed stadium, for us that was 5,000 people, and got to play against some international competition was amazing. And I think that we won the first tournament that our country probably ever won. When I was there, it was called the Barbados Cup. We hosted it in our country, and we played against Guyana, Antigua, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent, I believe. And it was an amazing experience. Definitely one of the mile markers of my life.
Wow, so that is impressive. Actually, I knew that you played soccer. I didn't know that you actually played on the youth national team. So that opportunity, I'm sure, was a great experience at such a young age. Tell us about when you went to Canada, when you went back to Canada. Is that where you discovered basketball, or did you start getting into basketball a little bit later?
Well, I started to get into basketball in Barbados. There was a desire to introduce more sports on an organized level to youth. And so they brought in and they were looking for sports that didn't really require a lot of equipment, so that more youth could get involved. There were a few basketball courts on the island. They started to build outdoor basketball courts at every school. There's only 2 indoor gyms there at this particular time. But every school had an outdoor basketball court. And so when I was, I think I can't remember what year I was, but we started a basketball team at my school, and basketball exploded really quickly. I mean, within the course of, I think, my freshman year in high school, we had a basketball team nobody paid attention to, and by the time I was maybe a sophomore or junior, it had exploded to the point that we were playing our championship games at the indoor arena in Barbados. And so my team did pretty well. I was the tallest guy on the court. I don't think Barbadians in general are horribly tall people. Like, you don't see a lot of 6'6", 6'7", 7-foot guys.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was 6 feet maybe, but I was the tallest guy in my class. So that kind of stuck me in the post. And I was just in the post, just learning post moves, where, you know, it doesn't translate very well over here because of the height of the players here. But, yeah, I started to play there. And then after that, I had, you know, I was still playing soccer. That was still my focus. Played table tennis, played normal tennis. We call it lawn tennis, but played court tennis as well. I tried a little bit of everything, but soccer was still the mainstay. And at some point at the end of my senior year in high school, I had a small opportunity, a small window to go to Chile to try out with the coach that had come to train us. And then I saw this show, man. It's a show you might know, spin-off of the Cosby Show called A Different World.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw that show, James, I said to myself, I got to get some of that college stuff. That looks like too much fun. So I came to the States and played another year of soccer in high school in search of a scholarship. And when that didn't happen the way I wanted it to, I ended up going back to Toronto, where I was born, to try to figure out what to do with my life. And I started to play travel soccer there. And we would travel to the States, ended up getting a full scholarship from the University of Dayton in Dayton, Ohio. And just before I accepted that scholarship, I fell on a dislocated disc in my back, and that was the end of that.
So if we can recap, we're talking to Pastor Damian Chandler, the Capital City SDA Church in Sacramento, California. You were saying that basically you had a soccer career. You played soccer. You grew up in Barbados. I've had a chance to go to Barbados. It's a beautiful country. The best kingfish that I've ever had in my entire life was grilled,
yes, sir,
on a beach in Barbados.
Yes,
all of
sir.
the wind and charcoal and just the smell and essence of Barbados is embedded into that kingfish. I've never been able to find anything like that since. But I digress. You were in Toronto. You got a scholarship to UD, the Flyers. I did a stint in Dayton, so I'm very familiar with the University of Dayton Flyers. And you got an injury that prevented you from being able to participate and kind of change your life and career. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I'd like you to tell my audience kind of about your next step and how you ended up moving forward, and instead of going to a career, perhaps a career in the athletic realm, going into the ministry and how your ministry has evolved and touched so many people over the years, both music and pastoral ministry. So if we could talk about that in a couple of seconds after this break, we will be back on the Lance J Radio Show, Advent Sports Network. Pastor Damian Chandler.
Coming soon to Advent Sports Network, One-on-One with MJ, starring Michael A. Jones.
Great show, man. I've got the chance to check it out, check out several of your episodes, man. I think it's a breath of fresh air. It's great to hear people that you wouldn't ordinarily hear talk about sports and ministry in the same conversation. And I think it's relevant, man. And I just want to encourage anybody who's listening to spread the word about this. This is a great opportunity, not only for some great dialogue and discussion, but also some great ministry as well. So, man, hats off to you, man. You're doing a phenomenal job.
Sports talk, ministry, excellence. You are listening to the Lance J Radio Show.
Back on the Lance J Radio Show with Pastor Damian Chandler, giving us some really good insight into his career as a soccer player, how he grew up playing sports in Barbados, really focused on soccer and basketball, but even played table tennis, other sports, just had an athletic background and athletic talents that were endowed by our Creator, Jesus Christ. Pastor Chandler, what was the next move? So you had a chance you were looking at playing soccer on scholarship, and that didn't work out. You got injured. and had to go into a different field. What happened from there?
Well, in order to explain what happened from there, I have to press rewind on the tape a little bit, if that's okay with you.
That's fine.
While I was in New Jersey, I was playing in, I mentioned I had been playing in the States. I played in New Jersey at Piscataway High School. That team went from, it was just a great group of guys that year. And that team went from not being ranked in the state at all to being ranked fourth in the state and being looked at nationally. In terms of what that team was able to do. Flamed out in the playoffs, and it kind of left me for a loop. A lot of my friends went off to either play or to go to university, and at that point, I did not realize that I was not going to be able to do that. I came to live with my uncle, my aunt at that particular time, and I didn't realize that I needed papers and those kinds of things to go to school and a social security number and all that crazy stuff. I had no idea. I was just a 15-year-old kid wanting to play, or 17-year-old kid wanting to play soccer and staying with my aunt and my uncle. So when I was going to college, I realized that I needed this information, and I didn't have it. So I realized I would have to leave the country, and I couldn't work. I was weeding people's gardens for money, and my friends, I helped my friends pack up their houses and their cars and their rooms and literally watch them drive out their driveways with such hope in their hearts and in their minds, and I saw no future for me because there was no way that I could go to school. And their parents would employ me. They felt sorry for me, so they'd employ me and allow me to do odd things around the house so I could make some money. And one day while I was weeding a garden, and I don't think I've ever said this publicly, but one day while I was weeding a garden, I had an experience that for most Adventists, I don't know what the listenership of your show is, or probably something that is...
It's mostly Adventist, but we're expanding.
All right. Well, to all those who are out there, I had an experience that is a little bit in left field for most people. While I was weeding the garden, there was a presence that just stood next to me. I interpreted it as a messenger from God, an angel, and that angel spoke to me and just told me what my life would be. Told me about it. I was not Adventist at the time. Told me about a church that I would join that needed my leadership, told me about things that were happening in my family that I did not actually know, and then told me that I would leave New Jersey and go back to Toronto, and God would honor every promise that he ever made to me from Toronto. And one of those promises was that I would go to school in the States. That was odd. But I went in a moment from having, people always just ask me to describe it. It was a bright light on my left, with an audible voice that spoke and just laid out my whole future in moments to me. I went running out of that garden and ran into the house, and I went from being a guy who, my friend's parents didn't know what I was going to do with my life to articulating to them in a moment everything that would ever happen to me and for me. And I jumped on a Greyhound and headed to Toronto because that's what I was supposed to do. That presence told me the angel told me I needed to go to Toronto, so I went to Toronto. And when I went to Toronto, that first Saturday, I walked into a Seventh-day Adventist church. Half my family was Adventist, and I ended up being the Pentecostal guy because, for Adventists, you're either Adventist or Pentecostal, and there's nothing in between.
Right.
And while I was at that church, before I was even a member, they were putting me into leadership positions with the choir. And I was like the chaplain of the choir or whatever. And really the Lord gave me a spiritual voice, with my peers. And again, it was a powerful time. Every stage of my life, the Lord brought me into a place where it was a powerful time, not just because I was there, but because of the seeds that he planted in people before. So that when I got there, they were pouring into me, I was pouring into them. After every doctrinal sermon, I would be in the hallway arguing against, the Sabbath or anything else. And I would always open up my Bible, and I'd have a bunch of youth around me, and I'd say, okay, let's go to the book of Galatians, no more new moons, no more Sabbaths. And one day while I was arguing out there and fulfilling the call that the angel had given me as much as I knew until that point, this lady came out while I was arguing against the Sabbath and touched me on the shoulder and said, you know you're going to be a pastor in our church. And I mean, to tell the truth, I wanted to cuss her off. I wanted to cuss her with real cuss words. Like, you crazy? Not in this church. This church is too messed up. Plus, y'all don't have the right doctrine. And I was still playing. It was after that I fell. So I would go to church on Sabbath when I was in town, and when I was traveling, playing. And it was after that I fell. I dislocated a disc in my back. I had met a young lady, her name was Angie Franklin at the time, and the Lord caused us to be bonded. I got that letter from UD, and the injury just really, really, really brought to a halt everything I had been doing for 16 years of playing, or whatever amount of years I've been playing. And the coach called me one day and said, hey, I have a scholarship, but if you're not going to take it, I'm going to need to give it away. And it just felt like if it was an appropriate end for me, I would be able to tell people in Barbados that I didn't make a bad decision in leaving, that I did end up getting the scholarship that I came for, and that I would be able to walk away. And it felt like if it was time to walk away. So I did. And for a period of months, I was in La La Land, not kind of knowing what to do, because soccer was all I knew. And then I made a deal with God. My cousin is Wesley Knight, and I said to God, if that guy comes to town he was a theology major at Oakwood. I said, if that guy comes to town to do an evangelistic meeting, I'm getting baptized, thinking that it would never happen. And in 2 weeks, he called me and said, hey, man. And I said, oh, geez. He said, guess what? And I said, you're coming to town to do an evangelistic meeting. And he was like, yeah, me and John Scott. And I'd like you to be there. And I said, I'll be there. And really, didn't really matter what he said. You know, I already knew what my fate would be. And I was baptized. Someone actually just sent me the flyer from that evangelistic meeting. And it was amazing to see, to see the dates and the times and the flyer for the event where I joined this church. And 6 months later, I was on my way to Oakwood, and the Lord, I was still wrestling with not playing soccer anymore, and the Lord said to me that I would, whereas before I longed to play before stadiums of people, that I would now play on a new team with a new coach, with my king. And he would put me before thousands of people to declare his gospel and his glory to the world. And God has literally kept his promise. I think the pinnacle for me was actually preaching in England, and probably for reasons that were other than other people. I know, pastors like to travel and like to do their thing, but my reasons were really different because I had always dreamed about playing soccer in England. And so to be preaching down the street or miles away from Wembley Stadium was
the famous the world-renowned Wembley Stadium.
Yes, sir. For other people, it meant something else. But for me, it was a completion of a promise that God had made, where I was preaching to 1,200 people down the street from a place where I wanted to play in front of thousands. Not to say I would have ever made it there. I would not have made it there. But to see how faithful God is to complete his promise to those who he loves and those who love him was amazing for me. So, yeah.
You are listening to the Lance J Radio Show. We will be back with more of this awesome and epic testimony after these messages.
You are listening to Advent Sports Network, your exclusive home for South Central Conference basketball and the Lance J Radio Show.
What has it meant to you just being a part of the Ephesus Warrior basketball nation and just kind of playing in the Seventh-day Adventist basketball league? How has it impacted your life?
Honestly speaking, you know, that if I did not show up, if I would have just turned my neck and said no, honestly, I wouldn't even know where I would be right now.
Wow.
Because that's a chunk of me. That's a chunk of me. And those are, I mean, these are really close people to me now. You know, I wouldn't even have the knowledge that I even have right now. I mean, I did a lot. I've coached basketball. I done mentored kids. I done turned people from dealing drugs and going to jail, having a life of crime, into going to school. And me personally, I ain't even completed my own college courses. Mm-hmm. You know, I have a lot of role models that I have been able to actually show the right path to. You know, that show me the way to go. You know, I have very key people in my life that I'm very happy to know right now. Mm-hmm. You being one. You know, the experience was just nothing less than legendary and epic and great to me. And I will cherish that until the day that I die.
Sports talk, ministry, excellence. You are listening to the Lance J Radio Show.
Arise and give God glory. This is the command of gospel artist Kimberly Bolgen. She commands everyone to give God praise in her hit single entitled Garment of Praise.
Now is the time for your garment of praise.
This song gives a bold command to praise God no matter what. Continue to praise God as you also enjoy Kimberly Bolgen's other hit single entitled God Chose Me.
God chose me.
Put on your garment of praise with gospel artist Kimberly Bolgen and experience a new level of praise and worship. Check out our download locations to purchase gospel artist Kimberly Bolgen's music. You can also find out more about Kimberly Bolgen on her website at KimberlyBolgen.com. Experience the power of God through the dynamic ministry of Kimberly Bolgen today.
You know. You all know exactly who I am. Say my name.
Do what?
Say my name.
You are listening to the Lance J Radio Show on Advent Sports Network.
For the Lance J Radio Show with Pastor Damian Chandler, got one more segment. Going to talk a little bit more about his ministry. And I'm going to give him a chance to sound off. Damian is a 12, just like I'm a 12. And even though I'm a Colts fan first, but I live in downtown Seattle, which makes me a 12. I pay 11%. I pay 11% sales taxes. Therefore, I'm a 12. So if the Seahawks win a Super Bowl or are successful, I get to take credit for that Super Bowl because my tax dollars funds the ability for them to have CenturyLink Field and everyone to walk around obnoxiously in Seattle wearing Russell Wilson jerseys and Cam Chancellor jerseys.
Come on.
But just to recap before we get into pledging allegiance to United States of the 12, I want Pastor Chandler to recap. He's told just an amazing story. Pastor Chandler grew up playing sports. Was a very high-end soccer player, good enough to get a full scholarship. It didn't work out due to injury, and seemingly more, now that I've heard the full story, it didn't work out because our Lord and Savior had a better plan for him. He actually had the opportunity to be in the presence of an angel, which told him that his career was going to take a different path. The angel basically laid out exactly what was going to happen. A series of events happened over the next few years that pointed Pastor Chandler to his wife, and not only to his wife, but to his career, just as the Lord had outlined it in this interaction that he had with an angel. I want you to tell us, after all of that in your testimony, what are you doing currently at your post at Capital City out in Sacramento? And give us a little bit more of that unencumbered praise, that testimony. What are you bringing to the pulpit every week at 11 o'clock on Saturday mornings, and also bringing to your members in your interactions with them on a day-to-day basis when you're out doing ministry, when you're out doing evangelism, when you're out counseling people, when you're working with people in the streets, when you're working with couples who are going through issues? What is the platform that you currently stand on?
The platform I stand on is my life, man. Listen, dude, if I could tell you how much I hate preparing sermons, and if I could avoid preaching, I think I would. There's some people who want to be pastors because they love a pulpit. I don't necessarily love a pulpit. There's some people who want to be pastors because they want everybody to adore them or to, I don't know, they like the title or whatever. I can do without the title. What I can't do without is expressing to others what God has done in my life. And that's right. Real, that's literal, so when I stand up in the pulpit, I tell my church all the time, you're only getting the back end of what God is saying or doing in me. And unfortunately for my church, fortunately or unfortunately, you're going to get a sermon that really defines where I am and what God is saying or doing or where he's challenging me. And my prayer has always been that where God is challenging me, that there's someone in the building that's being challenged in that same way. So my sermons are filled with my testimonies, my stories. God has done enough in my life where I think I have books and books of stories of things that he has done, and I couldn't stop giving him praises or thanks for the way that he's worked in my life. So when I share with others, the finger is never pointed at the congregation, because whatever I'm preaching on is exactly what I'm struggling with. So that has kept me sober. And when my head gets too big, the Lord finds a needle and pops that thing by really showing me. Oh man,
He always does. You look at the story of Peter.
Yes, sir.
Walking on the water. I mean, as soon as you take your eyes off of the master and look around what's going on, you immediately begin to drown and perish. Immediately.
But dude,
we are tethered
crazy
to him.
Because you just said that, and it just made me think about Peter's life overall. And do you know that God was constantly having to bust his bubble? You got the thinking in the water. Then not too long after that, you have him with his self-righteous self saying, who's going to be the greatest in your kingdom? Not very long after that, you have him, jumping up and saying, you are the Son of God. You are the Messiah, the Son of God. Days after that, he's then, denying Christ in the court. After that, then God renews him and says, hey, Peter, I want you to feed my sheep after the resurrection. Then you thought you got it after resurrection. He's flowing real good, preaches that sermon on the day of Pentecost, but still struggles with bigotry and racism. And God brings a newbie in Paul to point out his issues and to say, yo, dude, you're a racist. And to get his attention. You look at the life of Peter, and we remember the times that he was sinking, but when you look over the course of his life, God had to deal with the same thing in Peter's heart in different environments, in different times, in different phases and seasons of his life, but God was constantly dealing with that issue of his pride, of his racism, of his bigotry, and God dealt with that until the day he died. And because at every level that God digs in my life, I find that there's another level underneath that. And so we handle one area of our lives or one level of our lives. We get victory over one level of our lives, and it only gives God and the Holy Spirit more room to dig deeper. And because, God is going to continue to refine me until he comes. So yeah, Peter, that's me. And I'm growing, but the more I grow, the more I see need to grow and room to grow. So, yeah. So we're here in Sac. I prayed to God that he would send me to a city, and when I described the city to God, and if I described the city to you, God was so on point. I wanted to be in a place with a church that hungered to do great things for the Lord. I wanted to be in a city that was not saturated with Adventism, but was vibrant when it came to Christianity. I wanted to be in a city where I feel as if my gifts and what God has given me is going to be a gift to them, and they're going to be a gift to me. I want to be in a church where I didn't have to be ashamed to say that this is where I go to church and this is where I'm a member, because I'm not just a pastor. I'm also a member of this church. I want to be proud of the church that I'm a member of, and I'm very proud to be a part of the Capital City Seventh-day Adventist family. So we came up with our mantra, up here with the Sacramento Kings. I'm a Raptors fan, but this is Sacramento Kings land. So
I hope that you're. That's a nice segue. I hope that you're a lot more successful with your ministry than the Sacramento Kings are.
Dude, listen, man. Don't hate on us. It's a big comeback. We're building that arena downtown, and it's about to be a comeback. I'm still a Seattle fan. I'm, part of my heart is still in Seattle, but we have a team. Hallelujah. We have an NBA team, so we're happy for that. We're steps ahead of where SeaTac is right now, where Seattle is right now. But our mantra here at the church is we're going to take Sacramento for the King, playing off of the Sacramento Kings. And every single week we scream it out, top of our voices, and we mean it. We mean it. So God has just been blessing the ministry here. And there are challenges, but the challenges are meant to grow me and to grow those around me. I don't claim to know everything or to do everything correctly, but this is a church that doesn't need me to do that. We're hungry to fulfill that call, and that is to take Sac for the King. Dude, there was one more turn along the journey really quickly that I wanted to share was related to sport. I don't know if I ever even dialogued with you about this, but while I was in Huntsville before I came to California, I have a really big desire to intersect with my community in very meaningful ways. And I was at a graduation, my daughter's graduation. She went to a public school there, and then I felt this need to share Christ with somebody. So I turned to the guy next to me, and I always felt this way. I feel like if I vomited Jesus all over this guy. It was just obnoxious and rude, and it was crazy. And so a few weeks later, I get a call from him, and he tells me, I am the coach of the professional hockey team in town. And, to all those listeners out there, you don't think that hockey, as a Canadian boy, you don't think hockey is a big thing, but there's a professional hockey team in Huntsville, Alabama. He plays at the Von Braun Arena, Huntsville.
They used to be called the Channel Cats. I don't know what they're called now. But
I was just about to call them the Channel. I was about to call them the Channel Cats. It's on my brain. I just lost it. I could see the mascot now. But anyway, he said, "Man, we're looking for a chaplain for our team. Would you be interested?" I said, "Yeah, man, I'm in." And so he said, "We need to have a dinner with the owner, and I'd like to introduce you to the owner. We'll go out to dinner." We go out to dinner with Huntsville Havoc. How could I forget? That's my family, Huntsville Havoc. I go out to dinner with the owner. We sit down, and the owner starts the conversation. We're eating together, and the owner just breaks into the conversation. He's like, "Listen, you're Seventh-day Adventist, and that church is a cult. And I'm not about to have the pastor of a cult to be the pastor of my team. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and you're going to answer." I was like, "Sure." He said, "Do you believe in the Bible?" I said, "Your real question is, what is the role of Ellen White?" And he was like, "Exactly." I was like, "Do you like Andy Stanley?" "Yeah." "John Ortberg?" "Yeah." You like what's the dude's name? I just started to call all these contemporary writers. I said, I like a lady called Ellen White, and I think she's pretty cool. And if there's anything that she says that doesn't line up with the Bible, I'm free to discard it. And he's like, okay. He said, I noticed that you ordered fish. Most Adventists order vegetarian to make the rest of us feel guilty. What's the deal on that? I was like, you got players that play for your team? He said, yeah. He said, you expect them to take care of their bodies? And he said, yeah. I said, well, you're a man. I do it for my king. My king expects me to take care of my body. And if your players could do it for you, and you're a mere man, why should I not do it for God? He said, okay, I get that. Then he says, well, we have games on Friday night at the arena. You know, I know you got your Sabbath. Are you going to come out to the games? And I said, you got players? Like, yeah. You expect them to be at practice? Like, yeah. Right. And you don't expect them to miss practice, do you? He said, no. I said, well, my coach has a practice. It's sun down on Friday to sun down on Saturday. And I don't miss practice. So on Saturday night, after the Sabbath is over, I'll be in there. I'll wear the mascot uniform. I'll jump. I'll holler. I'll scream. But my coach, Jesus, has a practice. It's called Sabbath. And I don't miss that. And he was like, cool. Well, he says, I don't know if you're going to be the pastor of my team, but I feel like if I need to get to know you personally. Long story made short, 6 months later, he joins my Facebook. Starts to follow, you know, some of the posts on Facebook. You know, I post videos of my family having a good time and worship and that kind of stuff. And yeah, so if you could meet with me, we sat and met. He was like, man, I've been following you now for 6 months. And there's no way that you don't love the same Jesus that I love. So he invited me to be the chaplain of the team. It was an amazing experience, very professional organization. Got to see sports on a different level and got to sit in the office with him. And we literally wept together when we were cutting players or when there were issues on the team or, you know, he was very, very, very passionate and loving owner and a man of God, a man who loves God as well. And so if you're in Huntsville, check out the team. They're great. Huntsville Havoc, they'd love to have some more fans. You know, anywhere from 3 to 5,000 fans a night. It was great. Got to know the game. Got to know the players, administer to players who had concussions and various things like that. And that was just an eye-opener for how much that affects people's lives. And, yeah, it was just another chapter in my journey as I seek to take wherever I am for my King.
Well, for those that are listening, Pastor Chandler and I have covered the sports of soccer, American football, hockey, and basketball in 3 segments. When I started Advent Sports Network and wanted to talk about the concept of how people are touched in the sporting world by Christianity and touched by Christ, this is the exact type of interview that I want to facilitate. It's been awesome having you on the show, Pastor Chandler. I wish that we had a little bit more time to talk a little bit of Seahawks football. We got to get your boy Cam Chancellor into camp and in uniform. I mean, right now it's looking like he's going to hold out and he's going to miss the first couple of games. But I think that this interview's gone so well, I hope that we have a chance to maybe check in midway through the season when the Seahawks get off to that 8-0 start and looking like they're going to steamroll their way to another NFC title, ultimately to get beat by the Colts in the Super Bowl because they will lose to the Colts
my goodness.
when they get to the Super Bowl. But I'm hoping that I can track you down in November or December when we're getting closer to that time and we can talk about when Andrew Luck's going to do to you guys in San Francisco this year, which is right. It's only an hour from you, so I'm sure that you'll be out tailgating or out praising and passing out tracts to get people to come to your local ministry. So it was great having you on the show, Pastor Chandler. It's just,
dude,
it's been a great experience, man.
It's been good, man. And all those who are listening, first of all, there's no better praise gear to wear than Seahawk gear. So get it on and go to your church in Seahawk gear. But then secondly, man, if you don't mind, I wanted to tell everyone We're on Praise Vision. Just go on to Praise Vision, PRAIZE Vision.com, and check out Capital City in Sacramento, California, Northern California Conference. Please join us for our broadcast. I guarantee you that you're going to be blessed.
You are listening to the Lance J Radio Show on Advent Sports Network.
Hey everybody, this is Coach Eric Cantrell. I'm the athletic director and the head coach for boys basketball at Pine Forge Academy, located in Pine Forge, Pennsylvania. And I'm listening to the Lance J Radio Show on Advent Sports Network.
Well, frankly, what I saw was not a team that's ready for prime time. I mean, I get that this is first year, and, you know, they have to work their way up to a certain level, but you're Michigan, right? And you can't lose that game, in my opinion, especially when you get Jim Harbaugh and you have this big splash, he's making all this noise in the media day in and day out. I mean, where's the hunger? Where's the fight? And, you know, look, do I want that team up north to be better than what it's been? Because, quite frankly, they've stunk it up and been a sorry organization.
No, they've been an embarrassment. Program. They're pathetic.
Yeah,
They're a pathetic embarrassment and a caricature of themselves. In Columbus, and you went to Ohio State. I didn't go to Ohio State. I grew up in Columbus. But you're Morse Law grad. Could you imagine what would happen in Columbus if Ohio State was 5-7 for 4 out of 5 years? Like, the city would literally implode. Like, those people would be rioting in the streets. For Michigan to be so pathetic and so lethargic and be soft and just unable to close games, to get whooped up on by Penn State. They lost to Indiana last year. They lost to Appalachian State a few years ago. It's just an embarrassment. I mean, it's a joke. And it's an embarrassment to the Jordan logo, in my personal opinion.
You are listening to the Lance J Radio Show on Advent Sports Network.